Alrighty guys, so we are going to be taking the 3.6, 3.7 quiz today. So I gave you this warm-up just to get you ready for that. So this is in total just one question, but it does have several parts to it. So first it says to fill out the information, state the possible rational roots, and find all zeros of the polynomial. Okay, so first question is how many solutions? How many roots or zeros? We know that those are all synonyms, okay? So if we look, the highest exponent in this polynomial is a 3, which means that we will have 3, okay? Then we talk about our values of p. Remember that p is the constant, which is just the number that does not have any variables. So in this case, it's 1. So we want to think about the numbers, the factors that would go into 1. Well, it's only going to be a positive or a negative 1, okay? Then we go on to q. Remember that q is the leading coefficient, okay? So that is the number in front of the leading term. In this case, it's 6. So same thing, we just want to think about all of the factors of 6. So we know 1 will go into 6, 2 will go into 6, 3 will go into 6, and of course 6 will go into 6, okay? And then we talk about our possible rational roots. So that just means simplifying this fraction. What are the possibilities here? Okay, so we start with our first p over q, which would just be a positive 1 over 1, which we know is just 1. Okay, same thing with negative 1 over 1 would just be negative 1. Okay, we're done with that first denominator now. You don't actually need to cross it off, but move on. So 1 over 2 now, which is just going to be positive and negative 1/2. Okay, we keep going. Now we're moving on to the 3. So 1 over 3 is just going to be a positive and negative 1/3. And last but not least, we've got 1 over 6. So 1/6 and negative 1/6. So again, it's just simplifying that fraction, finding all the possibilities. Will all of these numbers work? Absolutely not. Okay, we just said there's only going to be a possible 3 answers. So not all of these are going to work. That's the whole point of this, is we're just trying to find one that does work, and then we can factor to find the other 2. Okay, so we always start in order. So I would start with 1, make that your ledge guy, and then put your numbers going across. So we want to double check, make sure that we don't have to leave any zeros as placeholders. In this case, we don't. So we have 6, 13, 8, and 1. We drop down the 6. 6 times the ledge, 6 times 1 is 6. Add them up. Okay, 19 times 1 is just 19. Now we add these up. We end up with 27. 27 times 1 is 27, leaves me a remainder of 28. That is not 0, so this will not work. 1 is not going to be one of these answers. So we go ahead, cross that off, move on to negative 1. Put our same numbers going across. Drop down the 6. 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. Subtract. We end up with 7. 7 times negative 1 is negative 7. Add them up and get 1. 1 times negative 1, negative 1. Add them up and we get 0. Thank goodness. Okay, we only had to check 2, so we got pretty lucky. But this is going to be a factor. X equals negative 1 is our first answer, our first solution. Okay? Which means that, again, we are finding a total of 3. We found one of them. There's still 2 more, so we have to keep going. We see that we have these numbers left, which are actually a polynomial in disguise, okay? So we don't need to worry about the remainder because it's 0. We just need to write out the remaining polynomial. So we work from the left. We know that 1 has to be the constant. 7 would have to have an x on it because that's what comes next. And then the 6 would have to have an x squared on it, because again, that's what comes next. Lastly, we just set this equal to 0, and we solve it. So since this is a trinomial, I would first try X method, see if that works. 6 times 1 is 6. 7 goes at the bottom. Two things that will multiply to 6, add to 7. 6 and 1 will work. Okay, so X method is going to work on this one. Great. That saves me a lot of time there that I don't have to do quadratic formula. So I put in my two new middle terms. I keep my first and last term. I do grouping. The plus sign in between, 6x squared and 6x both have a 6x, which leaves me x plus 1. 1x and 1 both just have a 1. Leaves me x plus 1. Parentheses match, so I'm golden. These are my next two factors, but I need solutions. So I'm just going to set each of them equal to 0. Sorry, I wrote kind of big, so I went off the paper. But this will end up being -1/6, and the next one will be -1. So that gives me a total of 3 answers. We do notice that these two are the same. That's okay. That happens. Okay? So again, make sure that you are finding on that quiz whatever that highest exponent is, that's the amount of answers that I need to see. Okay? Good luck. You're going to do great.